Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 303. We're doing our Week 10 NFL picks against the spread video. Joined once again by Jacob Camenker from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you, and how's your dreadful Week 10 like mine was?
I'm doing pretty well. Week 10 or Week 9 rather.
Yeah.
Week 9, horrible. There's no two ways about it. Things started well. The Packers got a win, which both of you and I had. And then we got absolutely crushed the rest of the week. I finished at 3-11 for the week. We had a little bad luck, but mostly just had some bad calls. We can't be right all the time. If we were, we would be billionaires, and everyone would be. But hopefully we'll bounce back, learn from our mistakes. That's really all we can do. And I think the thing that stung most about last week is you and I were texting before, like on Friday before our Super Contest entries, and we were like, yeah, we both really like this game slate. And then it went so awry so quickly.
Yeah, there were some bad calls. I will say, like, I don't know how you felt about Denver, Atlanta. I earlier in the week when we spoke, I liked Denver a lot, and then later in the week, I kind of soured on them and didn't bet them at all. But I was like looking at the injury report, like Denver was missing its entire defensive line, and they were down AJ Bouye, and it should have known to bet Atlanta, and it just didn't do it, and it's kind of like frustrating me. And I should have seen the Steelers like laying an egg coming, like they just had nothing to play for, so they just didn't try very hard. But then there were like some bad luck too, like the Chargers dropping 2 touchdowns in the final 6 seconds, the Jaguars covering at the end with Jake Luton. What else? Matthew Stafford got hurt. Kyle Allen got hurt. And then, I don't know what happened Monday night. Joe Flacco was suddenly like the second coming of Joe Montana. I don't know. That was so weird. We were talking about like how that looks scripted at the end, where like the Patriots were told to not cover, but like, you can win at the end if you want to. So it was pretty brutal. So yeah, as Andrew says, feels like you got everything wrong except for the Dolphins. I love the Dolphins. Yeah, we got the Packers right, and then nothing else. So I was right there with you. I was 3-11 as well, and it sucks because like I don't know what your overall record was, but I was picking at 60% against the spread the entire year heading into Week 9, and then Week 9 was just a disaster, kind of like it was last year. I said it last week. I was like, Week 9 was my downfall last year, and it happened again. So hopefully we can rebound Week 10.
Yeah, I had been picking at 58.8%, so just a hair under you, but. Yeah, now we're going to have to do a little bit of work to get back up towards that 60 mark, but I think we should be able to do it, hopefully.
Yeah, 60 was a cool number because I remember talking to Dennis, who clips these videos. I remember talking to him a long time ago where he was like, yeah, if you keep doing this, you'll hit 60% eventually for a season. I was like, and I was 60% heading into Week 9. I felt great, and then now it's like 55%. So have to rebound to hit that benchmark. But yeah, I do like some of the games this week. Some of the games we don't know who the quarterback's going to be, but I think. This week I think looks pretty good. So I guess we might as well get right to it. The first game, the Thursday night game, the Colts at the Titans. This line open up Titans minus. Let's see if I can find it. Titans -1. It's up to 2. This is another bad luck game, I thought, because Darius Leonard got hurt in the third quarter. He missed one play, but he came back, and I watched him the entire second half. He did not look like himself. He was like, look, he's running around slowly. And Baltimore just picked it up right after that. So with that in mind, who do you like here?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on the Darius Leonard point, because he was the key to helping stop that run offense. So with him being a little bit slow and nicked up, that hurt them. I am going to be on the Colts in this game, not for very much, 0 to 1 units, which means because it's a primetime game, there will almost certainly be a unit on it for me. I just think the Colts need this game. They're coming off a rough loss against the Ravens where, it looked like they were going to be able to contain them on defense, and then Leonard got hurt and things went downhill. And if they win this, they're tied with the Titans for first place in the division. If they lose this, they're 2 games back of the Titans, and realistically at that point, they're probably more likely playing for a wild card spot. And I think the Colts defense matches up well with the Titans offense. I think that's the number one thing I'm looking at here. The one piece on their offense that they're not going to be able to like truly contain, I think, is AJ Brown, but they're going to be able to eliminate the Tennessee tight ends, which Ryan Tannehill loves to check down to and throw to in the red zone. Derrick Henry just was able to get 68 yards against the Bears. Another tough run defense. The Colts are the best against the run. So I think that they'll be able to slow him down, and that'll be their focus, is make Ryan Tannehill beat them. And then the other side of the ball, I'm not very confident in the Colts offense. They don't have much at receiver. And Phillip Rivers at this point is just very hit or miss. Like if his arm isn't there on a given day, it's just hard for him to get the ball downfield. So it's all on his running backs and tight ends to make plays, really. But I think the Titans defense isn't that strong. They don't have a pass rush, so I don't think Phillip Rivers is going to have to move in the pocket that much, which is helpful for him. And I think if they can get their running game going, that'll help him out a lot. And I think you'll see a lot of dump-off passes to Nyheim Hines early, get Trey Burton involved. So I think that they have the matchup edge against the Titans. So I think that they could win this game. I think this number is right about what I expected, -2. So I think the Colts can cover. I'm not wild about this, but I'm going to be on them here. I will be looking at a few key injuries, including Darius Leonard, because if he's less than 100%, then this pick could easily change for me.
Yeah, I think you're right in saying that the Colts have matchup edges against the Titans, but not if Darius Leonard is injured. No, like if he's not the same as he was the pre-injury against the Ravens, then I think the Titans will win this game. If Leonard is completely healthy, then the Colts have a chance. It would also help if T.Y. Hilton came back. I think I underestimated Hilton's absence, and I didn't really take it into account because he and Phillip Rivers just haven't really clicked this year. But I think having him on the field just really stretches the defense, and like now the defense can play closer to the line of scrimmage. And without Hilton, they really have no deep threat. So it's just very difficult for the Colts to move the ball. And like you saying, like, oh, he's going to dump off to Nyheim Hines, throw to Trey Burton. I'm having like flashbacks of like this horrible game we just saw where they couldn't do anything against the Ravens beyond a couple of drives. So I'm going to be on the Titans right now. I just can't stomach being on the Colts. I'm not betting this game. I really don't see any edge here at all. Like, yeah, if Leonard's healthy, I think that could benefit the Colts, but we don't know that. And if Hilton, especially if Hilton comes back, like if Hilton comes back and Leonard's healthy, then I might switch to the Colts. But right now I'm going to be on Tennessee, but not going to bet this game.
Yeah, I do think that Hilton is going to be back. I'm pretty sure he was estimated a full participant in practice yesterday. That was just practice for estimation, though, so you never know. If he comes out in the walkthrough and doesn't look good, then maybe he doesn't play. But that'll definitely be something to watch moving forward. But if both of them play, I'll be on the Colts. If Leonard's out, I probably just won't bet this game, but I'll still like the Colts because I think there will be some sort of desperation from them.
Yeah, I can see that. It is a huge game, so I figure like both teams will definitely be bringing it. Before we move on to the Sunday slate, please hit the like button or hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. That would mean a lot. Or share this link to people. Like, the word of mouth would be, it's like one of the ways our channel can grow. And yeah, we're inching towards 2,000 subscribers, which is like not a high number for compared to other channels, but we're a new channel, and like I feel like a lot of people don't know about us compared to the website yet. So that would mean a lot if you could share or subscribe. That'd be great. All right, the first Sunday game. There aren't that many early Sunday games. I don't know why they did this. I know there are a lot of West Coast teams playing late, but it just seems weird. So there are, I believe, 6, and the first one has no line. It's Redskins at the Lions. There's no line because we don't know if Matthew Stafford is going to play or not. He suffered a concussion against the Vikings in the second half. So what are your thoughts on this? Like, what do you think the line's going to be? Or like general thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think this line is probably going to favor the Lions. I think if Matthew Stafford plays, we're going to see a number around 3, maybe 4. I just think that the books are going to look at what happened to Washington last week, losing to the Giants for a second time this year, especially coming off a bye. And they're going to say, I don't think they're going to have a chance against the Lions if Stafford plays. If that is the line and Stafford is playing, I actually do like Washington in that situation, playing as an underdog, because I think Alex Smith showed last week that he's kind of getting back in the groove of things. He had to replace Kyle Allen mid-game. And, he came in and actually threw the ball pretty well. He had 3 interceptions. I'm not overlooking those. But if you break down all of them, the first one, the back fell down on the route, so it just went straight to the linebacker. The second one was a really bad decision on Smith's part, so he shouldn't have made that throw late in the game. The third one, they were in desperation mode. They had to drive the length of the field with like a minute, 40 seconds left. So he threw it deep and it got picked. So I'm not putting a ton of stock into that, but I am putting stock into the fact that he averaged over, I think, 10 yards per attempt, which is pretty huge for a quarterback like him. So I think he's going to be fine. He's going to be able to lead that offense to some success against what has been a weak Lions defense in recent weeks. They were just gashed by the Colts, who, as we were talking about, don't have a great offense, and the Vikings, who Dalvin Cook ran like crazy all over them. The other key injury in this one is Kenny Golladay. If Galladay's in for the Lions, then I think they do much better on offense, and I might switch my pick. But I'm kind of anticipating that he might not be around this week. And if he's not, I think Stafford's going to have a tougher time connecting with his receivers against what's been a good Washington defense. They have had their rough patches, but they can get pressure on Stafford, and they can limit at least if Kenny Galladay's out, they should be able to limit the receivers. So I like Washington here, depending on the line. If there's a backup starting and then this swings way in Washington's favor, then I might reconsider. But I think they're going to keep it close. I see this being maybe a field goal game, so I'll take Washington if they're an underdog.
Maybe it'll be the inverse of last year. Remember last year the Lions were at the Redskins, and Jeff Driscoll was like a 4-point road favorite. So maybe if Chase Daniel starts for the Lions, maybe Alex Smith will be a 4-point road favorite, and we could bet against them. I think I agree. Like if Stafford's in, it's probably like the Lions are favored by more than a field goal. And I actually think I like the Lions at that point. It really depends on Kenny Golladay, as you said. Like that's a big injury. If he's back, I definitely like the Lions. If not, I'm not really sure where I'd go yet. I have to see what the spread is. But it seems like the Lions feast on these horrible teams. Like they only beat the bad teams. Like remember, they clobbered the Jaguars a few weeks ago. They beat Atlanta. Like it seems like all their wins comes against these bad teams, and whenever they have to play a good team, they get smoked. And I think, obviously the Redskins are terrible. Like they couldn't beat the Giants. They've lost the Giants twice. And I know they made a lot of mistakes last week, but that's what bad teams do, is make a lot of mistakes. So I think that, I would say the Lions, I think they have a good chance to cover this, especially if Golladay plays. So we'll have to see what the line is. But right now I'm leaning toward Detroit.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. I just think that Washington's been one of the frustrating teams this year, because every time you think like, oh, they're starting to put it together they take a step back. And that's what it felt like coming out of the bye. Now, like, it's time for them to give people hope again and it'd be like, oh, they must beat the Lions and they covered. But like you said, we don't really know without a line what's going to happen, and we need to see the injury report. So this will be one of the ones I'm watching, though, because I'm more than else interested to see what the line is going to be.
Yeah, and what Andrew says, if you can only beat bad teams, you're a bad team too. Yeah, I mean, but they're the best of the bad teams. Like it's like I don't even know like what to compare it to, but they're like the biggest small fish in the pond. Like that's basically what the Lions have been over the years. All right, next game, Texans at the Browns. This line opened up Browns -2. It's up to 3. Lots of money coming in on the Browns. So who do you like in this game?
The Browns quite a bit. I don't know why this line isn't higher. I guess the logic is that without Odell Beckham, the Browns don't have as much firepower on offense, and their defense, especially in the middle of the field, has some weaknesses. But if you break down what's happened with the Browns lately, they were, I think, a 2.5-point home favorite against the Raiders, and they didn't cover that one. But that was in a horrible wind and rainstorm that they didn't stand a chance in, and both teams had a lot of trouble moving the ball. The Raiders only won because I think they have the better offensive line, and Wyatt Teller was out for the Browns. But the Browns are getting healthier. They're coming off a bye, so they've had extra time to prepare for this game. And you're talking about they might be getting Austin Hooper back. They're getting Nick Chubb back in all likelihood too. That's going to be huge for their ground game. They're going to be able to run a lot more. Wyatt Teller might be back too. He's a name to watch because he makes a huge difference in the run blocking game. So they're getting healthier. Their offense should be able to move the ball on the Houston Texans defense that just had a ton of trouble containing Jake Luton in the Jaguars offense. I know some of that came when they were up pretty handily, but it was still a one-possession game when Luton led that potential game-tying drive. So that does give me some pause about Texans. The other thing is, I just think that Romeo Crennel, look, he's the interim head coach right now. So this is probably his last chance to have a head coaching gig or an interim head coaching gig at this point. The Patriots are on the Texans schedule following this game. So I think there might be some look ahead for Crennel in this where he might, I know he used to coach the Browns too, I think, but I think he might look and say, hey, I might be able to actually get a win against Bill Belichick and the Patriots. Like, this is a lost season, but if I can do that in this year, I'll be able to hold that over his head for the rest of my life. So I see a little look ahead for the coach possibly. So I just think everything favors the Browns in my opinion. So I'm on them for, I think, 2 to 4 units. Depends on the injury report, but I definitely like them.
You know, what's funny is last week we agreed on every game except for Carolina, Kansas City, and then I switched my pick to Carolina. This week so far, we're disagreeing on all 3 games so far, which is funny. But I don't like so far. I'm not confident in any of the picks yet. Like I like a lot of the later games. This is a 0-unit bet for me, so you're more confident on this one. So I would trust you because I had a tough time gauging this one. So like a couple of things. One, the Texans last week against Jake Luton, they allowed that backdoor cover to happen, and they had that first touchdown to DJ Chark, which was a great throw. But the Texans didn't have either of the starting cornerbacks. Like Bradley Roby was suspended right before kickoff. And it wasn't for, like, obviously it wasn't injury, is disciplinary issue. So if he's back, I don't know what's going on, but if he's back, that's going to really help the Texans because, with no Odell Beckham, they could just put Roby on Jarvis Landry. And then it's like, who does Baker have to throw to? Like Austin Hooper he's just okay. Kareem Hunt out of the backfield. Like there's some decent weapons, but like, I feel like the Texans can keep pace with that. Like the Browns don't have a good secondary outside of Denzel Ward. They have some injuries in their secondary, and the Texans still have all their weapons. They didn't trade Will Fuller, so they still have Fuller and Brandon Cooks and Randall Cobb. Jordan Akins is back, and like he almost caught a couple of touchdowns last week. I have that in mind. So if Roby comes back, I think I like the Texans because I was thinking about this, and it seems like the 2 most likely results of this game are Cleveland winning by 3 and Houston winning by 3. And if we get the +3, we get both. When this was -2, I was leaning toward Cleveland, but now that it's -3 and the money brought this up to that line, I think I like Houston. I feel like Deshaun Watson could steal this game. Like the Browns aren't a good team, Like I know if getting Wyatt Teller back will definitely help, and they get Nick Chubb back. So like the Browns have some talent, but they're just not that good. Like they almost lost to Cincinnati right before their bye. And then they lost to the Raiders. Like I know the win was involved there, but like they're just not that good. So I think Watson could steal this game. So I'm on Houston, but it's just a lean. I'm not going to bet this one.
Yeah, I don't think the Browns are that good either, but I don't think the Texans are good. I mean, Deshaun Watson's a great quarterback, and he has some good weapons at his disposal. But the thing that I keep harping on is that the Houston defense is just bad. Like, even if they get Bradley Roby back, they've allowed more rushing yards to running backs than any team in the league. And the Browns, if Nick Chubb plays, have the best running back tandem in the league in Chubb and Hunt. And they can just kind of rotate those two in and just kind of do a ton of damage, play ball control. So I think that it's possible they could just wear out Houston and not give the offense enough chances. So I'm more confident in this one than you, but we'll see what happens. If the report changes, like if Chubb or Wyatt Teller's not playing, then I might change my tune about this once I see if the line moves or not.
I don't disagree with you at all. Like you're right. Houston's defense is terrible. But I just think that Watson could maybe steal this game. Like I don't have any confidence in Cleveland, like definitely winning by more than a field goal, but like maybe I'm just wrong. All right, next game. It is the Jaguars at the Packers. This line opened up Packers -14. It's down to 13.5 in some sports books, but 14 in others. So who do you like in this game?
I actually like the Jaguars, and this is a good example of last week I said I was afraid of Jake Luton, and I didn't know why. Evidently, I was right to be afraid of that for some reason because he did end up covering. Now, I don't think the Jaguars have a prayer of winning this game, but I think that they could cover. I think people are going to be a little bit biased towards the Packers because of their last win against the 49ers, where they just completely demolished them for most of the game. And look, they looked at really good, but then they allowed like some late garbage time touchdowns. But their defense, they have some issues. They cannot stop the run at all. And they blow coverages too often. Like Richie James had a bigger day than Devontae Adams last week, which is insane when you say that out loud. And that was against the team missing their top 4 pass catching weapons. So the Jaguars actually have some good weapons. And I'm worried that if Jair Alexander, who's dealing with a concussion, doesn't play in this game, that if Jake Luton gets time in the pocket, he's going to be able to throw to DJ Chark. Laviska Shenault is questionable, but Chris Conley's still there. James Robinson catch passes out of the backfield. So I think that I think that the Jaguars might be able to get a backdoor cover here. I think Green Bay still wins, but we're talking about potentially a 2-touchdown line or something just shy of a 2-touchdown line. I'm confident Aaron Rodgers wins this game and probably by double digits, but I don't know if it gets to 2 touchdowns. So I'm just sticking with the Jaguars for now. We'll see if Jair Alexander plays. I'll probably change that, but need to see a little more there.
Yeah, I assumed Alexander was going to play. I mean, he suffered a concussion on Thursday, so he's had extra time to get ready. If he's out, that's definitely a big factor because that's like yet another number 1 corner that DJ Chark gets to avoid. But if Alexander plays, like Chark's not going to do anything, and then Jake Luton has to depend on the other receivers, and I don't see it happening for him. Like the Jaguars were down, what was it, like 11 points in the second half against the Texans at one point. And the Texans are terrible. And the Packers have had extra time to prepare for this game. If Alexander comes back, then I think the Packers can shut down whatever the Jaguars are trying to do. Conversely, I don't know how Jacksonville's defense stops Aaron Rodgers at all. Like Jacksonville has an abysmal defense too. And Rodgers might be getting Allen Lazard back, so he doesn't have to depend on Marquez Valdes-Scantling anymore. Aaron Jones is going to be healthier. Jacksonville's defense is just terrible. They won't be able to stop Jones. I figured like Jones could be like the top producing running back this week. I think this is going to be a blowout. I just don't see it happening. And so I was kind of extra careful here. And I was like, are the Packers going to be looking ahead or are they going to be distracted? Like, I don't see them being distracted by beating the Niners, especially off a long week. And then next week they play the Colts. So there's nothing to look forward to there. So I think this is going to be the Packers winning going away. I think Luton self-destructs against like a real opponent. I like the Packers for a couple units, and we're 4 for 4 in disagreements.
That's impressive. This usually doesn't happen. I mean, we were 14 for 14 last week in agreeing. So maybe this will be better off. We at least get some diversity there. One thing I do agree with what you say. I don't think the Jaguars are going to stop the Packers defense very often. And I do think Aaron Jones is going to be the top fantasy running back this week. He's number 1 in Sporting News' fantasy football for this week. So can definitely agree. I'm just like, I wonder, I just worry about big numbers in games, and I'm just irrationally afraid of Jake Luton. That's what this boils down to.
Well, Garland kidnapped him for a reason, as we learned in Final Fantasy 1. But we have to agree on 5 games at least because we have a joint Super Contest entry that we have to try to win money in. So hopefully there are 11 more games left to talk about, or 10 more games to talk about. So hopefully we agree on at least half of those. All right, the next game, Eagles at the Giants. This line opened up Eagles -3. It's still -3, although this line's been taken off the board in all sports books except for a bookmaker. I read that some Eagles, some staff members tested positive, but I don't know like why. That's happened before, and that hasn't caused the line to come off the board. So I don't know what the deal is here. So with that in mind, who do you like in this game?
Yeah, so I have the Giants here for 0 units. I don't have a very good read on either of these games. Part of me thinks the Eagles are going to be better coming off of their bye. They're going to be healthier. They're going to have Alshon Jeffries possibly coming back after 10 weeks of us waiting to see if that would happen. Then Rager came back, and he was pretty good. Dallas Goedert was back in the game before the bye. So they have a lot more passing weapons. But I'm still worried about that offensive line. The Giants have been playing better on defense lately and getting more pressure. We saw them do that against Washington. We saw them get pressure on Tom Brady and the Buccaneers and just play really sticky coverage in the back end. where Tom Brady was actually making good throws against the Giants, but they were just breaking up every pass because they were covering so well. So that's just something to keep an eye on. If they keep improving that defense, that's less of something to consider for this year, maybe down the stretch, but next year, Giants could be a little bit of a sleeper team there. I also think their offense has played a little bit better. Daniel Jones still is making mistakes constantly, but the only quarterback doing that more frequently than him is Carson Wentz, who leads the league in interceptions and sacks taken with marks of 12 and 32 respectively. So I think there's going to be a lot of mistakes in this game. I think it's going to be sloppy. And my rule of thumb in NFC East games, they're usually close. Occasionally one blowout when the Cowboys have to start Benucci or someone of that ilk. But I'm just going to I'm going with the Giants for no units. I just think they're wanting to avenge a close loss and try to earn a win against someone who isn't Washington. So I'll take as you did earlier, I'm taking the 3 points because I think this is going to be a field goal in either direction. So I either win or push in this circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Although we're going to be 5 for 5 in disagreements. I don't know. I mean, I had a tough time like deciding this game. But then I thought about it, and then I came to realize that the Giants have beaten one team this year, and that's the Redskins. And in those two games, they've had to count on 6 turnovers from the Redskins, and yet they only won those games by a combined 4 points. So they need the Eagles to self-destruct, and like that could definitely happen. Like Carson Wentz is not seeing the field well, but I think that there's a chance that coming off a bye, he might be better. Like maybe he's going to look at film and realize something that's going wrong. Maybe Alshon Jeffrey will help a lot. Maybe Miles Sanders coming back will help a lot. Maybe Lane Johnson not leaving the game in the middle of the game will help, and like having a week off will allow him to be healthier. So I just think that like the biggest advantage in this game is the Eagles defensive line versus the Giants offensive line. I know the Giants offensive line played better against the Buccaneers, but I don't think Tampa really tried that hard. And then last week the Redskins just gave that game away with like 4 turnovers. So I think as long as the Eagles don't have too many giveaways and off a bye, maybe they won't. I think they should win this game easily. But then again, like if they start turning the ball over, then the Giants could definitely win. So I like the Eagles, but I can't really bet this game. I can't bet the Eagles as a field goal favorite on the road. So, it's another no unit bet, but I like some of the other games a lot more later.
Yeah, I like the late slate better too. I get where you're coming from because I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm just leaning on the Giants because they've played better of late, and I don't think they should be like 3-point underdogs at home, but there's definitely a world where Carson Wentz doesn't make as many mistakes or Daniel Jones has 5 turnovers. So I think we're kind of on the same page here of this is like a tough game to pick. We're just on very slightly opposite sides.
Yeah, and this is secretly kind of a hedge for me. I guess not so secretly anymore because I have an 18-1 bet on the Giants to win the division, which is still alive somehow. Right. So if they win, if the Giants win this game, they have just as many wins as the Eagles do. So could still happen, I guess. We'll see. All right, the last game of the early slate, which is weird. The Buccaneers at the Panthers. So I opened up Buccaneers -6.5. It's down to 4.5. So a lot of money coming in on the Panthers. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Buccaneers here. This goes into one of our biggest theories we show about elite quarterbacks coming off a loss. Tom Brady was just embarrassed on national television. The whole Buccaneers team was. The defense was terrible. The receivers were terrible. The offensive line was terrible. Brady was terrible. He had one of the worst throws of his NFL career, probably, when he just lollipopped that thing up for grabs on 4th down just because he had to get it away and give them a chance to do something. So he's going to be very mad about that. The rest of the team should be too. And maybe they're just awful on national TV because this is the 3rd time they've played a primetime game and the 3rd time they haven't covered the spread. So I don't know what the theory is there because Tom Brady usually is good in those spots, but maybe the Bucs just aren't ready for the limelight. But anyway, I think that the Panthers defense isn't as strong as the Saints. They've suffered some pretty massive injuries that have, taken away their ability to stop the run and stop the pass. So I think Brady and the Bucs will be able to throw on them. And Carolina really hasn't been good against the run all year. So I think they'll get more of a ground game going. Ali Marpet was out with a concussion last week, I believe. So if he's healthy, that makes that makes it better for the Bucs too. And defensively, they should be motivated because they've been horrible, and they can really resolve the communication issues they've had against the Panthers. They can render them one-dimensional. Christian McCaffrey sounds like he might miss this game with a shoulder injury, and even if he plays, the Bucs have been very, very good against him over the course of his career. So I like Tampa Bay to win this one. You just never bet against a pissed-off Tom Brady. And when everyone's starting to put I think the Bucs are they're not really what we thought they were going to be. Every time we do that to Tom Brady, he bounces back. So I'm expecting it at this point. If that ends up being wrong, then we'll revisit it next week. But I like the Bucs here for a couple units.
Well, thank goodness we agree on one game at least. I had a feeling that we'd be on the same side on this one, and to put a number on your stance on Brady coming off a loss, he's 44-21 against the spread in his career after a loss. If you remove all the games where he's favored by 7 or more, he's 36-10 against the spread off a loss. Like that is amazing. So, obviously you want to bet on great quarterbacks who get humiliated. And Brady was definitely humiliated on national TV. And he's going to be pissed off. He's going to be in FU mode. Like he's going to want to take it out on the Panthers, and poor Panthers, by the way, they get this is the second time this year they've gotten Brady off a loss. I just don't think the Panthers have the personnel to stop Brady and all of his weapons. Like they're just like pretty decimated. Like if they had Kawan Short still, you could say like, all right, maybe they can get some pressure on Brady and disrupt them, but no Short really makes their defense a lot worse. We just saw Patrick Mahomes put up 33 points against them, and Mahomes didn't even have his best game. Like he had some inaccurate passes in the first half, and yet the Chiefs still scored 33. So I think the Buccaneers, especially after like having a real week to prepare, I think that's gonna be big for them. Like I think what really hurt them against the Saints was like they didn't have a full week to like integrate Antonio Brown and to make adjustments for the blown coverage they were having. So I think having a full week will make them a lot better. And then you have the Panthers, who as you said, McCaffrey may not play. It seems just not that good. Like I feel like the Buccaneers should win this game, especially considering that they're going to be very motivated. So this is going to be like a 3 or 4 unit play for me.
Yeah, I think that there's really just no reason to bet Carolina in this one. Like they performed really well on offense against the Chiefs. Like give them credit for that. And I think their offense is really strong and is built to succeed for years to come at this point. I'll credit Matt Rule. He's done a lot better than I thought he was going to do in his first year. But they're just mismatched in this one. So Tampa Bay should really bounce back, and they're all going to be mad. And there's nothing that motivates players more than a humiliating loss when you're a good team. If you're a bad team, you don't care if you lose like by 40 or by 4.
That's true. Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah, they're going to be pissed. Next game, Broncos at the Raiders. This line opened up Raiders -4. It's up to 5.5. So who do you like here?
I'm leaning on the Broncos in this one. I'm not going to bet this one yet because they do have some stacked injuries at cornerback. AJ Boye and Bryce Callahan are both missed last week, which had a massive impact against the Falcons. And you already hit on their defensive line earlier. So tons of injuries on defense. But I still think that the Broncos are a solid team if they're all healthy. And the Raiders don't have a very good defense. And the Raiders really almost lost to the Chargers last week. And frankly, if either Donald Parham or if Mike Williams catches that touchdown, this line probably doesn't move as much as it did. I think people are focusing a little bit too much on Denver because they were getting crushed by Atlanta, and people think Atlanta's an awful team, and they're not good on. They still have a good offense, Atlanta. So I think the Broncos are going to be able to stay in this game. I think the Raiders, there's a little bit of a look ahead possibility. I know this is a divisional rivalry game, so they probably won't be looking that far ahead, but they have a chance to sweep the Chiefs, and they're playing the Chiefs next week. So they could get it in their head of like, oh, Denver's not that good and they're banged up. Like we'll handle them. And then we get to take on the Chiefs. And if we beat them, we might be in the divisional race here. So there's a little bit of that motivation that I think could work against them. And the key for the Broncos is, can Drew Lock play well outside of the fourth quarter in garbage time? I think that he has the skills needed to do that. It's just about showing that he can. But where this spread is almost up to 6, I definitely like Denver if they get healthy. If they don't get healthy, though, I'll probably switch my pick. So this is a no bet for me right now, but I'm leaning on the Broncos.
It would help if Locke didn't run back in the pocket like all the time, like even when there's no pressure. It's like, oh, where are you going? Like I don't understand like why he's doing that. Like he really needs to be coached up. But you're right, he has the talent. Like he's great arm talent for sure, and some mobility. But he can't. I don't think he's ready to play yet. Like he needs to be coached up by like a great quarterbacks coach. But it was at least nice that like Jerry Jeudy got off, with a good game, and then Tim Patrick had some nice catches at the end. So I think that the foundation is there for Denver. I just don't think Locke is ready for like prime time yet. Like he can beat some bad teams, but I don't know. Like I just don't know if he can take advantage of the Raiders' weaknesses. Like the Raiders are a lot like Atlanta. At least their defenses. Like they're good against the run. But they're not that good against the pass because they don't really have much of a pass rush, and their secondary isn't that very good. So it's kind of like the same exact like game as we just saw. I think the difference would be is if Denver's defensive line comes back, like they were missing their entire defensive line against Atlanta. So they could just do nothing to stop the Falcons. And then they were missing their top two cornerbacks as well. So we won't know. Like we didn't know about Bryce Callahan until the inactives came out, which is unfortunate. But we probably will know about the defensive line. So if like their entire defensive line's out, I feel like the Raiders can just overpower them and just score on every possession, kind of like Atlanta did last week. But if they get some defensive linemen back, suddenly they'll be able to get some stops. They should do a lot better against the run, and they'll be able to get some pressure on Derek Carr, especially if Trent Brown can't come back. So it really, the injury report is huge here. Like, and I'm like kind of kicking myself for not really seeing this last week. So yeah, like right now I'm leaning toward the Raiders, but I might change my pick definitely. So check back on the site on Saturday for any updates.
Yeah, no, I'm kicking myself too because I saw Bouye and Callahan were out on game day, and I hadn't bet that game officially yet. And I was like, oh, maybe I should bet Atlanta now and switch my pick. And I was like, no, it's too late for me to switch my pick. Like that's bad karma, and it never is. Like, just switch the pick. Yeah. You're wrong in like 90% of the time if you switch or don't switch, though. So you true. Almost never be right.
I know. Yeah. It's like the deal or no deal. Do you want to switch the case? Like you're supposed to switch the case, but I feel like when you switch the NFL pick, you're always going to be wrong. Like that I don't know why that is, but it always is. But yeah, we should have switched it, but I guess as Cam Newton once said, hindsight's 50-50. Next game, Bills at the Cardinals. This line opened up Cardinals -3. It's down to 2, 2.5 in some sports books. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Bills in this one. The Cardinals aren't very healthy right now. They're missing a lot of players on defense, including Chandler Jones and a bunch of cornerbacks. I think that Drake Kirkpatrick was out last week, and his replacement, Kevin Peterson, got a concussion. So if they continue to miss players on the defensive side of the ball, Josh Allen's just going to be able to throw and run all over this defense. We just saw him take down the Seattle defense, that has had their share of issues this year, but I would say has better personnel than the Cardinals. I know that the Seahawks had a couple of cornerback injuries last week, Shaq Griffin and Quentin Dunbar, but still, Allen looked like a legitimate MVP, throwing for 400 yards and counting for 4 touchdowns. So I think he matches up well against that defense, and I think the Bills have too many weapons for the Cardinals to contain. The big question is obviously going to be, will the Bills defense be able to contain Kyler Murray? I think they have a better chance at it. We just saw the Dolphins eliminate DeAndre Hopkins with their stellar cornerback play. So I think the Bills are in a similar boat where they can have Tre'Davious White and their safeties work to take away Hopkins, and then you just got to worry about Kirk and Fitzgerald there. If they can do that, Kyler Murray's going to have to do everything pretty much by himself, which he's fully capable of doing. But if it ends up being a shootout, I think that Buffalo is just better equipped to slow down the Arizona offense. So I like Buffalo here for a few units. I think I got 2 right now. May go up to 3 depending on how many players for the Arizona defense are unavailable. But I think Buffalo's kind of starting to round into form now after kind of a rocky patch for Josh Allen. We're going to see him start playing better again.
Yeah, I read somewhere that Josh Allen, he had an injury to his like non-throwing shoulder or something, and I saw that and I was like, it's a non-throwing shoulder. Like, why would that affect him? But like, I guess it did because now he's healthy and he just had a great game against the Seahawks, and he's definitely back in MVP conversation. So based on all the injuries the Cardinals have, like not just cornerbacks but edge rushers as well, he has a great matchup here for sure. Like, so the Bills should be able to score at will, I feel like, on Arizona, at least, provided the Cardinals don't get some of their players back from injury. But I think the same thing could be said about the Cardinals. Like, I think Kyler Murray is a great matchup here against the Bills because Matt Milano is going to be out. And really, I feel like the Seahawks should have taken advantage of that more with Russell Wilson running. I feel like they were kind of like trying to keep up in a shootout because the Bills couldn't be stopped. But I think they should have just kind of taken a different approach in that game, and like maybe there could have been a different result. But I do think that Kyler Murray is going to have a great game running the ball, and so it really depends on the injury report. So like if all the cornerbacks are still out for Arizona and all the pass rushers are out, then I think you're right about the Bills. But if they get some guys back, I think you can make a case for the Cardinals, especially given that the Bills are a publicly backed underdog, which is something I always like to go against. So definitely looking like about 65% of the money is on the Bills. And come Sunday morning, all the TV analysts are going to be picking the Bills. It's going to be like I'm sure like someone's going to lone wolf the Cardinals on NFL Network or something. But yeah, everyone's going to be picking the Bills, and the Cardinals are still favored. So like right now I'm leaning toward Arizona, but if everyone's still out for them, then I may switch to Buffalo.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point for sure. I hate backing public dogs, but I think in this situation, I think it's better to go with Buffalo if Arizona is injured, because then the line's just off. But if they get their players back, then you got to reconsider. So I'm definitely on Buffalo, and I probably still will be throughout this whole thing unless Arizona's literally everyone back.
Yeah. All right. We are done with all the games I don't like. The rest of these games I have multiple units on except for one of them. So I'm excited to talk about these games coming up, and hopefully we agree. The Chargers at the Dolphins, the line open up, Dolphins -3. It's down to 2.5. So who do you like here?
I like the Dolphins. This feels like another stupid line for them. We've seen this a few times this year, where they were playing the 49ers and the 49ers were favored by like 8.5 points and the Dolphins won outright. We saw it last week with them too. The Dolphins ended up beating the Cardinals, who were favored in that game. Granted, that one was closer, but we're talking about the Dolphins taking on the Chargers here. And I know the Chargers have been good on offense, and Justin Herbert has been excellent, but their defense hasn't been good. They have some good personnel, but they're never all healthy at the same time. They've been horrible against quarterbacks this year. And Tua, for all the talk there was about after one start about the Dolphins moving on from Tua, Tua handled that very well and played very, very well against the Cardinals defense because, they're weaker than the Rams, but the Chargers aren't very good on the defensive side of the ball either. So I think he should have a fine day against them. And then the other side of the ball, the Dolphins secondary is just so good at shutting down receivers. I mentioned that they beat DeAndre Hopkins last week. I think he had only 30 yards on 3 catches. That is not easy to do, especially when you allow 34 points to a team, and DeAndre Hopkins is accounting for none of them. So I think they'll be able to, slow down Keenan Allen. That might get Justin Herbert off balance a little bit. I still think the Chargers will score on them, but I think the Dolphins should win this one. The Chargers just are unable to win games that are one possession. So I think we're already getting like value in the fact that if the Dolphins win by a field goal, they cover here. So I'm going with the Dolphins here for probably 3 to 4 units unless something surprises me on the injury report.
Yeah, so we agree on this one for sure. I've been a big Dolphins supporter since like week 4 or week 5. Ever since they played a very close game against Seattle, I thought that was very telling, like how good they were. And like then I thought about it, like that was heading into the San Francisco game, like where they blew out the Niners in week 5. I remember like they almost beat Buffalo week 2, and like week 1 they lost to the Patriots, but Bill Belichick had like an eternity to get ready for that game. And their other game was a blowout against the Jaguars. So I'm like, this Dolphin team might just be good. Like they're pretty strong in some areas, like a cornerback, receiver, and like their defense overall is good. Their special teams are great, and I love Brian Flores. I think he's an excellent coach. I think the Dolphins are like 15-5 against the spread in their last 20 games. I think I saw that number somewhere. And it doesn't surprise me because I don't think people realize how good they are yet. And like this spread kind of indicates that. And it's not like there's a ton of money on the Dolphins or anything. This line is just mispriced. Like I made this line Dolphins -4.5, and like even that like seems kind of low, considering like the Chargers. They're so frustrating. Like you just said, like they find ways to lose. But not only that, like like heading into that game, I was hoping Trey Turner would play. And like, then Trey Turner was inactive. I'm like, all right, whatever. Like Brian Bulaga is still there, fine. And then Bulaga gets hurt in the first quarter, and like he's out. Like who knows if he's going to play. So like they could be down 3 offensive linemen again against a Miami defense that's gotten pretty good. And then with Tua playing a lot better, he was great last week, like moving on the run. He was so accurate. It was like night and day how great he was. And I think he's just going to play just as well this week. Like the Chargers are missing too much. They don't have like as much personnel as they should have. Chris Harris out there. Dorian James is injured. Joey Bosa, we don't know if he's going to be coming back off a concussion. So, I'm definitely on the Dolphins for at least 3 units. Could be higher, could be even 5 if Bosa's out and Bulaga's out and Trey Turner's out. So, it's definitely a big play, and the Dolphins could be a huge play.
Yeah, I think we're probably just going to be on the Dolphins until these lines start coming out correct. I don't see I don't see a reason that they shouldn't be favored by more than a field goal. Devin's right. -2.5 seems too easy. Like I don't know. I saw that this wasn't more than a field goal, and I was stunned.
Yeah, me too. Question here: are you Walter Payton in the SC Gold? I wish I were, because I believe he won last year. No, I'm WalterFootball.com / in the SE Gold, and I was 5th last week, and then now I'm not in the top 5. I'm sure I haven't looked because I'm too scared to see how far I dropped. Anyway, next game, Bengals at the Steelers. This line was -8, I think, and then it was taken off the board because we don't know if Ben Roethlisberger is going to play. Assuming this line is 8 and Roethlisberger plays, who do you like in this game? And also, if Roethlisberger misses this game, like, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm assuming Roethlisberger is going to play, so it'll be a -8 line. At that price, I definitely like the Bengals. If Roethlisberger doesn't play, I don't know exactly where this line would go to. I imagine it would probably be in the 4 or 5 range, maybe a little bit lower. Depends on what people think of Mason Rudolph. I don't think he's that much, so I would be on the Bengals in that circumstance as well. But I just think that this line is too high. I mean, Joe Burrow has lost by more than 1 possession just once in his career. And the Steelers are like slightly overrated at this point. Granted, they're undefeated and they've played very well this year. And I think that they're going to be a legitimate contender come the playoffs, but they do have their share of issues. First of all, Big Ben is dealing with injuries to both of his knees, not just one, both of his knees, suffered last game. So we don't know how that's going to impact him. And given that he has to isolate because of the COVID issues he's having, we don't know when we'll see him at practice. So we're not going to get a good look at him and really know what he's doing. And we saw Matthew Stafford last week basically have to be isolated until game day. And then he struggled before he got hurt too. So I think the same could happen for Big Ben. And then defensively, the Steelers defense, they're really good at times, but they also give up a lot of yardage this year, especially to receivers. And we saw it last week against the Cowboys. Granted, they may not have been focused, but Garrett Gilbert ran for like 20 yards on them at one point, and that just shouldn't happen ever in any circumstance. So I think the Bengals are going to be able to cover this spread. I am a little worried about Joe Burrow playing behind and a demolished offensive line against a really good pass rush, just because he's at his worst when he's taking sacks and is under pressure. But I still think that 8's too high. And if all goes well and they work the quick passing game, Burrow has enough weapons to cover an 8-point spread. So I'll be on the Bengals for a couple units in that case, depending on how confident I am in the offensive line there.
Yeah, so I was under the impression that the Bengals are going to get back a lot of their linemen this week. They just came off a bye, and not except for one of their starting linemen, like none of them were on the injured reserve list. So It feels like they should, at least a few of them should return. Like Jonah Williams should come back, like Bobby Hart. So if those two guys come back to combat the edge rushers, I feel like the Bengals have a good chance, not just to cover it, but to win outright. I think someone said Bengals money line, and I think that's definitely a possibility here. The Steelers just almost lost to the Cowboys. Like, I know they weren't focused in that game, but like, how focused are they going to be in this game when they're nearly favored by double digits? Like, I just don't really see it. And I think you're a little like right in saying the Steelers are overrated. It's not saying they're a bad team by any means. Like, they're obviously a great team, like the top 5 team, but I don't know. They almost lose to Dallas. Like, they almost lose to Tennessee. By the way, the Bengals just beat by more than. And, I know they beat the Ravens, but the Ravens had so many turnovers in that game, and they lost Ronnie Stanley in that game. And so it was just like a mess for Baltimore. I feel like if they played that game again and Stanley didn't get hurt, I think the Ravens would have won that game. So I do think the Steelers are a little overrated. Like, I feel like this line should be like around 6 or so, which is like, kind of makes sense if you look at all of Joe Burrow's results. Like, all of them, as you said, by a single score except for one game, actually by 5 or fewer points except for one game. So I think that the Bengals should be able to hang tough. Like, they've gotten some defensive players back from injury. William Jackson came back last week from injury, or last week, the week before the bye from injury. Mike Daniels came back too. So it was like the first time Daniels and Geno Atkins played for the first time all year together. So, yeah, I think the Bengals are better than people think they are. And I think the Steelers, while still great, aren't as amazing as people think they are. So I think the Bengals should be able to cover the spread. I like the Bengals quite a bit, actually. It's probably going to be like 3 units or so.
Yeah, I could be convinced to up my unit count too. Again, it depends on the offensive line and what's going on there. But I also think that the Bengals might win outright. Like, I don't think that that's crazy, because we see this with undefeated teams. They beat a really good team or one of their top rivals. So when the Steelers beat the Ravens, then you're looking down the rest of their schedule, and it's like, oh, Cowboys, Bengals, Jaguars. Oh, we got these next 3 games, and then we get to take on Baltimore again, and we'll have a chance to be 12-0. So they kind of overlook these guys, and that's when they tend to lose. It's not always against a great opponent. It's sometimes one of the games you don't expect. And I think that the Bengals could easily be that type of team that goes for a massive upset here and pulls it off.
Yeah. By the way, one thing I forgot to mention is Roethlisberger, like, not just his knees, but like, he's holding his elbow like all the time, and like, it just seems to be getting worse. And like, he wasn't very good against the Cowboys. Like, the Steelers really got bailed out by some penalties. Like, if it wasn't for some of those defensive penalties on the final drive, the Cowboys would have pulled the upset, and then everyone's still alive and Survivor would have lost. So, yeah, I don't know. I just don't think this team right now could beat the Bengals by double digits, but we'll see. Next game, Seahawks at the Rams. This line opened up Rams -1. It's up to 1.5. So who do you like here?
I like the Seahawks. I don't see why they would be an underdog in this game, because they're better than the Rams. I know that there are some injury issues at cornerback for them, and the Rams have the personnel needed to take care of that. But Jared Goff at any point can just have a terrible game. My boss at Sporting News likes to say that he's matchup proof in the way that he can be really good against any team and really bad against any team. Like, it's just whatever Jared Goff shows up, it's that Jared Goff. So I don't trust that he's going to show up in this one. And again, this goes to the betting on elite quarterbacks coming off of a loss. Russell Wilson just had his worst game of the year. He was outplayed by Josh Allen in a battle of 2 MVP candidates. That's probably not going to sit well with him. And also, he's in a very competitive division, and he's got to keep winning to have a chance at the 1 seed of the NFC and to stay on top of this division too. So if he loses to the Rams, then you're talking about, oh boy, we've got to be able to win a lot more games down the stretch. Whereas if they win this one, it's a lot more comfortable. And I saw that comment. I know the Seahawks aren't going to be able to pressure Jared Goff that much, but you don't always need to pressure Jared Goff to force him into mistakes. It helps. He's under pressure. He's much worse, but I still think they'll be able to make him make some mistakes. And either way, the spread is small enough that, first of all, aren't favored in this one, and I think they're going to win. So why wouldn't I bet them at this price? So I like the Seahawks for probably 3 units at this point, because just betting on elite quarterbacks coming off a loss, especially when they're not favored, that seems like a a good idea to me.
Yeah, again, to put a number to that, Russell Wilson, except for his rookie year, he's 23-10 against the spread off a loss. Like, it just goes to show. I mean, like Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, like those are the 4 quarterbacks you want to target off a loss. And we get 2 of those this week, which is great. No complaints there. So I'm definitely going to take the Seahawks here. I know their pass defense is so shaky, and the Rams have some talented receivers, but Jamal Adams wasn't quite himself in his first game back. I think he's going to be a lot better. I think you'll see that. You tend to see that, like when players are out for a long time, they come back. The first game is not that good, and then they get better. Like we saw that with Miles Jack a few weeks ago. Like he was injured, and then he came back. And his first game was bad, and then he got better. Like I think that's going to happen with Adams. And then some other players could come back for the Seahawks too, like Shaq Griffin and Hugo Amadi. Like if they get back one of those guys, suddenly their cornerback groups will be a lot better. Maybe Mike Upati comes back to help with the offensive line. So there's definitely some upside for the Seahawks here. And, your boss is definitely right about Jared Goff. Like he can self-destruct at any moment. He failed to take advantage of the Cowboys and the Giants matchups. Like what the Rams score in those 2 games? I know in the opener, they scored, what was it, 17 or 20 points against 20. The Cowboys. Yeah, 20 points against the Cowboys and then 17 points against the Giants. So, this is a good matchup for Jared Goff. And maybe he throws for 300 yards. But maybe he throws for 150 yards and 2 interceptions. Like that could definitely happen. So I would not want to rely on Jared Goff. And I don't know about the pressure part. Like Carlos Dunlap looked pretty decent last week. He got some pressure a little bit. And I don't trust the Rams offensive line as much as I do Buffalo. So I'm definitely right there with you on Seattle. It's at least 3 units. And if Seattle gets some of their players back, then it might be 4 or 5.
Yeah, I could definitely see upgrading this. I have a range of 3 to 4 on it. It just seems like a good bounce back spot for the Seahawks because they tend to play well against the Rams, if I remember correctly, too. At least in recent years.
Yeah. Again, 23-10 against the spread off a loss. Devin, who asked what Russell Wilson's record is off a loss. So, all right, last of the late afternoon games, 49ers at the Saints. This line opened up Saints minus 8.5. It went to 10. Now it's 9.5. So, who do you like in this game?
I like the 49ers here. I think the spread moved too much. And there's a big thing that people are overlooking about the 49ers. Yes, they got crushed on national TV by the Packers. And meanwhile, the Saints crushed the Bucs on national TV. But the 49ers have extra time to prepare for this game. And they're going to be getting a ton of players back. They were without their top 4 pass catchers against the Packers in Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and Kendrick Bourne. Kittle's not coming back, but the 3 receivers are. They might be getting Raheem Mostert back in the backfield. We don't know about that yet. Kyle Shanahan said there's a chance that will happen. Defensively, they may get some guys back too. Also on offense, Tevin Coleman. I don't know if he's going to play this week, but I think that remains a possibility. So you're talking about this team getting a lot healthier around Nick Mullins, and people will focus on Nick Mullins as a problem spot. But in reality, you should have a chance to cover this. I don't think they win it, but I think getting close to 10 points for the Saints, who are going to be looking back at that win over the Bucs and being like, oh, we just absolutely killed the Bucs and Tom Brady, and now we're in the driver's seat in the division. They may come out a little flat against a 49ers team that, is on the downturn and as starting a backup quarterback. And again, I don't think they're going to lose, but I think we could see a scenario where, they win by just a touchdown or they, win by a field goal because they let the 49ers get a garbage time touchdown. So I'm going to be on the 49ers here. I don't know how many units I'm going to be on here. I think that probably 2. I just think the motivation favors the 49ers too, because if they lose, they're pretty much out in the playoff race. If they win, they can at least stay alive. So I think that drive might make them come out fast while the Saints may come out flat.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about all the players coming back. Like that's enormous, and I think people are ignoring it. I don't know. Did you mention Trent Williams too? Because
I forgot all about him being out, but that is massive.
Yeah, it sounds like he's going to come back as well. And like his absence was enormous last week because the Niners backup left tackle was just so abused by Zadarius Smith. Like he just had no chance. But having Trent Williams back is going to be enormous for the Niners. And yeah, they get their receivers back, maybe some running backs. So their offense is going to look a lot different than it did against the Packers. And like you said, they're going to have extra time to prepare. They're also going to be more motivated, like you mentioned. The Saints are going to be looking at, like they just beat the Buccaneers, like just exactly what you said. So I think the motivation favors the Niners as well. I think the spread favors the Niners as well, too. The advanced line on this game was 6.5, and it moved 3 points. And yet the Niners are going to be a lot better than they were last week. Like that doesn't make sense. Like the line should be moving down because the Niners are going to be getting so many players back from injury. Like it's just great line value. Like I know that like picking Nick Foles over Drew Brees like seems like incredibly stupid. And like if the Saints end up winning in a blowout, like you're going to feel like an idiot for picking Nick Mullins over Drew Brees. But I think this line's too high. I think the Niners are a lot better than what the spread says it should be. And I think there's a legitimate chance the Niners win this one outright. I think this is going to be like a field goal game. And it's not like the Saints have blown teams out this year. Like, the Saints, except for the Buccaneer games, for some reason they seem to have the Buccaneers number. This year they lost to the Raiders by 10. They beat the Lions by only 6. I know that was a bigger lead, but Stafford got the backdoor cover. They only beat the Chargers by 3 at home. They only beat the Panthers by 3 at home, and they only beat the Bears by 3 on the road. A team that just got smoked by the Titans. So, and I know Michael Thomas is back, and the Saints are better than they were in those games, but the Niners are going to be a lot better too. So I think this is going to be a close one, and yeah, I like the Niners a lot.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head with the Bucs games. The difference in those games is Michael Thomas, but also the amount of points they're getting from that. It shouldn't be this much.
Yeah. Do you like Jared Goff in DFS this week?
I will say I do not. He has a good matchup, but I just trust him. My coworker at Sporting News, Billy, he does like Jared Goff. He hasn't been one of his lineups this week. I think as more of a contrarian play.
Really contrarian. I think he's going to be high owned this week because everyone knows Seattle's pass defense is so bad. Like I think that's someone I'm going to fade. I don't want Jared Goff at all. So.
That's a good point. I was just assuming he was. I always assume people think the exact same way as me on everything. So I'm like, Oh yeah, I don't like Jared Goff. Maybe I'll play him contrarian. It's like, no, everyone's playing him this week. I'm like, oh, then I'm not playing him.
That's true. Yeah. Well, we'll see about the ownership projections, but yeah, I would not play Jared Goff. I think this is going to be too chalky. Anyway, the Sunday night game, Ravens at the Patriots. This line opened up Ravens -7. It's still 7. So yeah, can the Patriots not disappoint us again?
I don't think so. Just for the record, I'm looking at Billy's lineup right now. He does not have Goff listed as a contrarian play, so I'm putting words in his mouth. So just that's on me right there. But no, the Patriots, the dynasty is over, ladies and gentlemen. Not in its entirety, but like they have to rebuild a little bit at this point. They're not a playoff team this year. They almost just lost to the Jets. I still don't know how that possibly could have happened. They looked horrible last night. They made Joe Flacco look elite, which is a sentence I hate uttering. I've hated that for years. But that's what he looked like last year. I mean, they have a good offensive line, but they're banged up elsewhere. Their secondary is good. The rest of the defense, not so much. And they just have no pass catching weapons. Like I like Jacoby Myers as much as the next guy, but he can't be your number one receiver, and you expect to do much on offense. The Ravens, their defense is very good. They just shut down the Colts offense, which I know isn't anything great, but the Patriots don't have many weapons outside of Cam Newton. So we're talking about Cam Newton in the rushing game can't get going against the Ravens. They're going to have a lot of trouble moving the ball because Myers is going to be the focal point of the Ravens defensive coverage. And I don't know if N'Keal Harry is going to be back at that point, and I don't know if that even makes a difference. So the Ravens just have the advantage everywhere, especially on the offensive side of the ball. The Patriots have been very weak against the run recently. They just let Frank Gore run like crazy on them. So I just have no faith in them containing a Ravens offense that averages 170.1 rushing yards per game, which is the most in the NFL. The Patriots are going to bounce back at some point, but they match up so poorly with the Ravens. There's no reason to pick them in this one. They could only beat the Jets on a last-minute field goal by a kicker with a bad back. So I'm on the Ravens here for 3 to 4 units. I am just going to fade the Patriots until the lines associated with them are more accurate, because I personally think that Baltimore's probably 10 points better than the Patriots at this point.
Yeah, you're probably right. I have some concern with the Ravens because Ronnie Stanley's out and Calais Campbell's out. Like, there's two of their best players are not going to be in this game. So the Ravens aren't as good as people think they are just based on these injuries. But the Patriots are, man, they almost lost to the Jets. Like, that was just so bad. If their offense had struggled and like they eked out like a 20-16 win or something like that, I would feel better about them than what happened last night because their defense just couldn't stop Joe Flacco at all. And I know the Jets had a fully healthy receiving corps for the first time all year, but like, I don't know, like Jamison Crowder, like he barely even did anything. It was Rashad Perriman and Denzel Mimsy doing all the work, and it was just like what is going on? Like JC Jackson's like falling down all the time. No, I know Stephon Gilmore wasn't playing, but still, I feel like the Patriots should have done a lot better. And I just think they're gonna have trouble with Lamar Jackson. Like they struggle against the run. And I thought heading into the Jets game, I was like, all right, the Jets can't run. Patriots run defense won't be exposed. They should be able to handle Joe Flacco. And that didn't happen. So the Ravens should run all over the Patriots, I think. And the Patriots have no pass rush. I'm right there with you with the Ravens. I think if the Patriots had a full week off and to like make adjustments, that would help at least. But they're coming off the Monday night game. It's a short week. I don't think they'll be able to make all the adjustments they need to make. And so that hurts as well. So I'm going to be on the Ravens with you. This is the one game I'm not betting because with Stanley out and Campbell out, I feel like we're getting bad value. But I do think Baltimore's the right side.
Yeah, I can get not betting them because of those two injuries. But what I flash back to is last year's game against the Ravens. And granted, I know the teams are a lot different now, but the Ravens ran like crazy on the Patriots in that game. The Patriots had no chance. And that was with a significantly better defense than what they have right now. So I know Lamar Jackson's not as good as he was last year right now. He might not be fully healthy. I keep harping on that knee injury designation he had early in the season and him being a little bit more wayward on his passing this year. But I still think that they're going to run it right up the middle like crazy, run read option stuff with Lamar, and the Patriots aren't going to be able to keep pace with it. But we'll see what happens. Doubting Bill Belichick rarely works. But this is one of the times I'm willing to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Scott here is saying teaser. I would not put Baltimore in a teaser. If they were -8, I think I would do it. But 7, you're not getting the full 7. So like mathematically, it's just not that good. I'll say this. I think on the teaser this week before we get to the final game, let's get the final game first because I think it's going to be in the teaser. So Vikings at the Bears. The Bears actually open up -2.5, and now the Vikings are favored by 2.5 or 3. So you can get if you want to bet the Bears, you have to lay -120 vig on the +3. So who do you like in this game?
I hate myself for this, but I like the Bears again. I don't want to bet this game, even though I think the Bears are the right side. I just think the Vikings have played very well the last 2 weeks, but you have to look at the teams they're playing, the Lions and the Packers. Those are two of the worst run defenses in the NFL. Like both of them are bottom 5. I know that they allow the most fantasy points per game to running backs. I don't know their exact rushing stats allowed. They give up a ton of touchdowns to backs. And then the Bears are really, really solid on defense. They just limited Derrick Henry to 68 yards. And I think they're going to be able to do enough to take Dalvin Cook out of this game and make Kirk Cousins have to beat them or have to do something to beat them. Like all you have to do is contain and slow down Dalvin Cook. You don't have to completely stop him to be in this game. And I think that I just harp on the fact that the Vikings, they don't have a lot of talent at cornerback. And I know Nick Foles hasn't thrown well downfield yet, but he has talented receivers. And unlike at least 3 different occasions, he's had Darnell Mooney wide open for a touchdown and missed him. One of those has to hit eventually. It's got to happen. If there was a time for it to happen, it would be now. So I'm kind of anticipating this might be a sloppy game. It's going to be close, but I think the Bears could win this one outright. I think this is a field goal game either way. I think the Vikings are getting a little overrated because they had a big win over Detroit and then, a win over the Packers who weren't entirely focused. And the Vikings were coming off their bye. So I'm going to be on the Bears here, and if this line stays at +3, I'll probably bet it. I don't have a unit count now though because this just seems like something I don't want to bet. The Bears have burned me so many times, except when they played the Bucs this year.
Yeah, I hear you. And what Scott's saying here is right. Like people will hammer the Vikings. The Vikings are getting a ton of money, and that's not a surprise. I mean, the Vikings are coming off the 2 wins you mentioned, Packers and Lions, and the Bears. They've struggled ever since they started. Was like 5-1. So, the Bears are now 5-4. They were humiliated at Tennessee, although they kept things close against the Saints, and I think people will forget that, even though it was just a couple weeks ago. Like they took the Saints to overtime, and they almost won that game. So with that in mind, like why can't they beat the Vikings at home? Especially considering that Kirk Cousins in Chicago last year was just like couldn't do anything. He had just had a terrible game, and he's going to have to do something in this game because Dalvin Cook will be going against one of the better run defenses in the NFL. The Bears just shut down Derrick Henry, so they're going to be able to stop Dalvin Cook, and so Kirk Cousins is going to have to do something against a great defense. You know, he's going to have the pass rushers coming in on him, throwing into a tough secondary. So I think that Cousins could have a meltdown. I could see a couple of interceptions here. And then you get to the Viking defense. I thought they were going to get exposed last week. I should have factored in Kenny Golladay being out, but the Minnesota secondary is just missing a lot of its cornerbacks and both of its edge rushers. So, you know, the strength of the Bears offense is the receiving core with Robinson, Mooney, and Miller. I feel like those guys should be able to get open against the Vikings. And, you know, Nick Foles, we've seen him play well at times this year, like against the Buccaneers at home on national TV. And then the Saints at home, you know, I guess sort of on national TV. It was the featured Fox game. So I like the Bears a lot here. I mean, I think we're getting great line value, especially at +3. This line, the advanced line on this game was Bears -1.5. So this moved 4.5 points just based on 1 week's worth of action where the Vikings beat the crappy Lions and the Bears lost to a decent Titans team. Like, why would the line move 4.5 points? Like, doesn't make any sense. So especially with +3, I love the Bears. They might be my top play of the week, as scary as that sounds.
Yeah, and I wouldn't fault you for making them the top pick of the week. Like you said, that line moved like crazy. I just, you know, I have this thing. I hate the Bears, and every time I pick against them, they cover, and every time I pick with them, they don't, except once. So, you know, I think this is as good a spot as any because the Vikings have gone from, you know, oh, maybe they could pull off a couple of wins to very overrated very quickly.
Yeah. By the way, I mentioned the teaser here. So my teaser, I would want Chicago to bet, you know, 2.5 up to 8.5 to get 3, 6, and 7, because those are the key numbers you want. And also, I want to pair that with Seattle, going from 1.5 to 7.5. So my teaser would be Seahawks +7.5, Bears +8.5. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a very good teaser. I think that's definitely a good way to do it. I could also see. If I was more confident in the Steelers, I could see putting the Steelers at -8 into a teaser, because then basically you're just betting on early win the game. But I still think the Bengals could win that one. I'm also comfortable with taking like the 49 and teasing them and just making it plus whatever to give you half of a team that's pretty much guaranteed. Because I would imagine the 49ers would be able to cover a 6 or 15 or 18 point spread.
You would think so, and then Mullins will throw that pick 6 when he's down 10, and then
very
17.
True, very true.
All right, let's do our survivor pick. So it's a tough one because you know the Packers are the obvious pick this week. If you haven't chosen the Packers yet against the Jaguars, that's so obvious. And it's, you know, I don't think you have to be too contrarian at this point because many people may have picked the Packers already. So I think you can get away with that this week if you want to be a little bit contrarian. The Steelers are -7. You know, they're an option. Even though they were picked last week. The Ravens at the Patriots, like we think the Ravens should be able to win, but I already picked them. I don't know about you. So I don't know what your selections are, but so like I guess even though I like the 49ers to cover, The only like logical place to go, and like the Dolphins were even in consideration, but I picked them already. The Saints, even though I think it could be a field goal game, I still think Drew Brees at home still should be able to win that one outright. So I don't know what you're thinking, but my top choices this week would be Packers, followed by the Ravens, and then I guess you can get to like the Saints.
Yeah, I agree with those top 2 or 3 choices. I don't know what I've picked because I'm horrible and don't write this down because I always forget to. But I know for a fact I haven't picked the Dolphins yet. And I know that the Chargers are good on offense, but I think that the coaching advantage there for the Dolphins might make me go a little contrarian and take them because I do think that they just are a more complete team right now. And I think Justin Herbert might have his first taste of struggles against that tough secondary. If they take away Keenan Allen, then he's going to have to throw more touchdowns to Gabe Neighbors, who has unbelievably caught a touchdown in the last 2 weeks. So we'll see what happens there. But I think the Dolphins would be my contrarian pick. But if you have the Packers or the Ravens available, definitely go with them.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, congratulations if you have the Packers. You just advanced to week 11. All right, that's it for this week. Do you have anything to plug?
I actually would like to say a hearty rest in peace to Tommy Heinsohn. The Celtics legend passed away today. I grew up watching Celtics games. I absolutely love the Celtics. They're my favorite professional sports team. When I was little, they would be losing by 10 and I would be throwing fits. And throughout all this, Tommy Heinsohn has been the color commentator my whole life. He will be greatly missed. I had the great pleasure of working for the same company as him for a little while. I don't know if I've ever been more starstruck when he first walked into the room and I saw him in there. So he will be missed in Boston. So just rest in peace to Tommy Heinsohn.
Yeah, absolutely. Rest in peace to him. Rest in peace to Alex Trebek as well.
Yes.
He when I was a little kid and my grandparents would watch me, my parents were at work. I remember watching Jeopardy with my grandpa, and like he would tune into it every night. Like he would love to watch Jeopardy. And like he was an immigrant to this country, so he didn't like fully understand everything, but he liked watching smart people on TV, and it was really cool to watch with him. And then like, especially like growing up and like, when I reached like the age of like 9 or 10, I would know a couple of the answers. And like, I remember like him beaming at me, like the first time I answered something before the contestant did. And like, he was just so happy. And like, it was just like great memories of just watching Jeopardy as a kid. And then recently too, like Jeopardy during James Holzhauer's big run. I thought that was excellent as well. So Alex Trebek will be missed. It's a shame. But yeah, it's So rest in peace to both those guys. So anyway, so do you have anything to plug?
You can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. I share a lot of my news for sport, my work for Sporting News Fantasy on there. You can also follow at SN_fantasy on Twitter if you want more injury updates, news, and just some DFS lineups. If you want to compare them to Walt's, feel free to check that out. If you want to talk football, just follow me on Twitter and tweet at me questions, or if we have a bad week, feel free to insult me there because that's always fun too.
Oh yeah, it's definitely the most fun. So I'm at walterfootball.com. We have our updated 2021 NFL mock draft tomorrow morning, so I'm gonna get to work on it after dinner. So I'm kind of excited to see how that unfolds. Updated picks throughout the week, updated fantasy rankings throughout the week, and as you mentioned, my DraftKings lineup usually post it the night before. So hopefully we cash this one. And by the way, not only did the Justin Herbert drop touchdowns at the end of the game, not only was that a super contest loss for both you and I in all of our entries, I also would have cashed in the high stakes contest if that touchdown would have happened, because Herbert was one of my quarterbacks in the two lineups. So, and I ended up not cashing by 0.8 points. And the four points would have gotten me there. So it was very tilting all around. Hopefully we have a better week 10. But once again, it would help a lot if you guys hit the like button, hit subscribe, notification bell, leave a comment, or you share this video. It would mean a lot to us. Like I said, we're closing in on 2,000 subscribers, which is really cool because we started this YouTube channel recently. So anyway, that is it for week 10. Hopefully we have a great week 10, despite our disagreements at the beginning. So anyway, I will talk to you in week 11.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for watching, guys.